because we can't be talking about the 20th century in that period without giving due focus to the Russian Revolution. Obviously, this was an incredible event that kind of took the power from the hands of the Tsar that ruled for hundreds of years into workers' power and created a democratic country, a socialist country for the first time. And obviously, this also had incredible, an incredible impact on women in the Soviet Union, because they've started getting so many more rights, right to divorce, the right to abortion, things that even today we're seeing aren't as progressive as was in 1917, in the period after 1917 in Russia. So I was wondering, Katja, can you tell us a little bit about the role of women in those revolutions and kind of what was the impact that they had on the revolution and also on the post-revolutionary period?
Women had a huge impact. And that's another thing that isn't talked about enough, and we're not told about this enough, right? And as an aside, I think that is a point we should register, actually, right? Yes, on the one hand, women are not talked about enough in history, but also the working class isn't talked about when we learn about history. So if you're a working class woman, you stand no chance of getting into a history book, right? Where in reality, there's this enormous richness of working class women who played a really important role in building movements that had a massive effect on the course of history, you know? And actually, the Bolshevik women are a point in case. People like Krupskaya, like Inessa Armand, but also Kollontai, are people that we don't talk about enough, and we actually don't read what they've written enough either, you know. What happened in Russia is that the 1905 revolution, really the dress rehearsal for 1917 in many ways, this first massive outburst of working class anger on the streets of Petrograd and beyond, has a big impact on the Bolsheviks as a whole, obviously, you know. But one of the things that stands out from 1905 is how important the role working class women played in that movement, you know, how much they were to the fore, how militant they were. So you've got that as a focal point. We need to look towards women, and we need to organize women, and especially the few Bolshevik women who were there at the time in the movement very much register that point. And then on the other hand, those same Bolshevik women are also involved in this Socialist Women's International that Clara Zetkin is setting up, and therefore get tips about how the work is being organized in Germany, lessons they can learn from that. And those two experiences together make that a number of Bolshevik women start focusing on trying to organize women in Russia, working class women in Russia, from 1907 onwards, but obviously in extremely difficult conditions, underground conditions, you know, much more repressive again than anywhere else in Europe. And actually from 1914 onwards, so in the middle of a war, you can imagine how difficult it was as a socialist to organize in these conditions, right? They start producing, there was no paper for one, right? But they start producing also a magazine very similar to Gleichheit, which I won't even try to pronounce because my non-existent Russian will murder it. But it's very similar in terms of its thinking. It's an organizer for working class women, it's exchanging experiences, it's of a high political level, and it's trying to build up confident working class organizers amongst women who can go into the factories, who can really, assist women to get working class women to get organized and so on, but also to really engage with the politics of the day. And that really, really pays off, right? Because if you look at what happened in 1917, if you look at the February Revolution, as we call it, which started on International Women's Day, as Megan said earlier, it's women. It's working class workers, women workers, who come out on the streets first and foremost, and who go literally around from one factory to the other, and calling out workers, and building up demonstrations of hundreds of thousands of people within the first few days of the revolution, right? There's actually some rare footage that you can look up on YouTube, and you will see it is the women in the front, and then the men who kind of, literally come flooding out of the factories joining that demonstration. And is there anything more inspiring than to see something like that develop, But I think what is as important is that all the way through 1917, there are ample examples of working class women, and the Bolsheviks being key in organizing them, going on strike, organizing mass demonstrations, organizing mass meetings, and keeping up the pressure against the Kerensky regime, and also putting up massive pressure when in the July days there's this reaction happening in Russia, you know. And there's fantastic stories, for instance, of someone like Kollontai getting arrested in July, and within an hour the police station being completely mobbed by thousands of domestic workers coming out to free her, you know. So that kind of direct action and that idea of solidarity, class solidarity with those people who were there for them to organize them in the first place, and when those people are being persecuted by the state, the working class as a whole coming out to stand up for them, you know. And obviously that leads to, by the time of the October Revolution, women workers playing an important role, but also within the Bolsheviks there being a female cadre, you know, women who are confident about speaking up about any political issue, but also about putting women's oppression on the table and making sure that there isn't just legislation being brought in, but that there's also practical initiatives being taken to assist women to fully participate in every aspect of life.